Okay, so welcome to this video, and in this video we are going to have a look at a method in which we are trying to find the first non-repeating character in an input string. So let's say if the input is Swiss, SWISS, then obviously the first non-repeating character here would be W. Flow of the program is as follows. I have created an executor class which contains the main method, and then I have a service class under the com service package which contains the logic which is used for finding the first non-repeating character. I have implemented in two ways. So one is this method find first non-repeating character, which uses a character count, but then there is also find first non-repeating character. Let's have a look like this. It's better to see the whole method declaration. Find first non-repeating character using hash map, and here I'm using a hash map to implement the same logic. Why these two approaches? It's just because I wanted to show that it is possible, and you can either do it by using a character array or using a hash map, whatever you prefer. Personally, I prefer a hash map because I think it's doing it more elegantly, because it's fulfilling the same requirement of finding the first non-repeating character, but using a hash map is also an option. The way it works is that I have the executor class here, which contains the main method. And in this method, I go through first the happy path and then various edge cases. And then I go through all of them again, but using the logic implemented via the hashmap method. So let's have a look here. We have the input Swiss, and based on the input here, the output that we are expecting is W, because that is the first non-repeating character in this. Another use case here for a happy path is race car, and here I'm expecting E to be returned as an output character. Then by having a look at the edge cases, we have noon, where there are no, or rather, let's put it this way, with all characters are appearing more than once, so there is no non-repeating character, so we expect a different outcome here. Also, another edge case is what if there's only one character of what if it's an empty string, or if the actual string is itself null, or if it's containing only white spaces. All of these are covered in my logic, which we will go through shortly when we debug the whole thing. And then the same thing is implemented again using hashmap, where I'm calling this method. This method is named like this just so that it highlights that, okay, this is a second approach. I didn't want to write it find first non-repeating character 2 or something like that, but just because this is a bit more descriptive, but you can name it however you like it, obviously. And here we also go through all of these scenarios. The display result method, it displays the result by taking the inputToCheck and checks if the result if itself is null. If it is, then it writes that, okay, the first non-repeating character is rather, my mistake. If the result is not null, then it says that, okay, the first non-repeating character to be found in this string to check is this one. Otherwise, it says that there is no non-repeating character found within the input. And this is just to create some gap in the console. This will become clear when we run the program itself. Let's have a look at the README now. So let's have a look at the objective. Given the input string inputToCheck, we find the first non-repeating character in it. A non-repeating character is obviously one that appears only once within the string. So given the input Swiss, it will output W. Given some other input string, let's say SISS, it will obviously print out I, and so on and so forth. Explanation is I have implemented it using not only character array but also a linked hash map. For me personally, I have chosen character array as my primary approach, but I just wanted to show that it's also possible to implement it using linked hash map, and I have left it both here, and which I will explain when we do the debugging session. So the complexity analysis is, in terms of time complexity, it's big O n, because in the worst case scenario, in which case it doesn't find anything. So let's say for the input noon n, it has to traverse through all of the strings, and it checks, okay, all strings are appearing, so there is no non-repeating string, non-repeating character, my mistake. In that case, the time complexity is big O n because it traverses through the complete input string. Edge cases that I have checked is if all characters appear more than once, which was the example with noon. If input only has one character, if the input itself is null, or if it's an empty string, either an empty string or with uh, white spaces. Then it should also mention that non-repeating character does not exist here. Some of these edge cases are part of the pre-check part of the logic, which will also have a deeper look when we do the debugging. Secondary approach is implementing the same logic using hash map, and like I mentioned, there's no particular reason other than to show that it is possible. The technology that I've used is Java 11. In order to compile and test, you can check it out on your local machine and run the main method in the executor class. As always, all kinds of contributions are welcome, and you can contact me here. Do a run through of this project. So if we do run, if we increase it to get a better idea, here is the actual, so to say, the main problem that we are trying to solve here. That's written here, and then based on the input Swiss, the first non-repeating character is W. If let's say the input is race car, then obviously the first non-repeating character is E, and that is mentioned here. And if the input is noon, then we say, okay, there is no non-repeating character found within the input noon. Same goes here. If it only has one character, and also if it's an empty string, or if it contains only white spaces and so on. And then the same logic is implemented and executed when we do hash maps. So now let's have a look inside the methods as well, what we are doing there. So let's have a look here. In the first approach, we perform some pre-checks. What are these pre-checks? So we check if either input is null, if inputToCheck is blank, or if the length is less than equal to 1. In all of these cases, we return true. And what happens if we return true? Then the input string is set to null, and that is or rather, not the string, but rather the character, first non-repeating character is set to null, and that is the thing that is returned at output. That is the reason why we don't see anything here. So let's say if it passes the pre-checks, then we initialize an input character array with the length of 256, so that, so to say, covers all ASCII characters. And then we do a count of each occurrence of the character. So if we do a dry run simultaneously, then let's say if we do Swiss, then for S we do a count 1, Then for W we do a count 1. Then for I we do a count 1. And then for S we do increment the count to 2. And then for S again we increment the count to 3, and so on and so forth. And then here we check, we do a loop again, and we check if the character count here is equal to 1, then we have already found the first non-repeating character, and then we return this non-repeating character here. Otherwise, again, null is returned if no non-repeating characters are found. And same logic is applied here. We are using hash map here. So we do a character count, and here we say that we do for the key C. So let's say if we do Swiss. So for the character count for the key S, we get the existing character count or default. So if we are doing the first iteration within the loop, then this would be 0. Then we do a +1 here, so 1. And then we do W, so again it will take 0, and then do a +1 here. Then we do I, here it will again take 0 and add 1 here, so increment 1. And then we do S again. So at this point it will get the S, and it already has a value 1, so it will increment it by 1, so it will become 2, and for the final S in Swiss it will become 3. And after that we do another for loop on the entry set within this map and check if the value of the current entry is equal to 1. Then we just return the key, and obviously in this case will be S will be 3, but W will be 1 if we follow the example of Swiss. And eventually null is returned if it doesn't find any character, which we have already seen this here when we executed the code, but just out of curiosity, let's go to the executor class and let's do a breakpoint here, and let's do a breakpoint here, or rather here, just so to go through and see how everything is working when we debug it. So now we are debugging. So the input to check is Swiss. Then we go further, and now we are in the service class itself. So input to check is Swiss. When we do the pre-checks here, let's have a look. Dive here. So I mean, its value. Is it input? Is it null? No. Is it blank? No, it has a value. Is the value less than equal to 1? No, it's greater, so it will return false. So if we go further here, we end up here, and then the for loop is the interesting part. So let's have a look. Currently we are at S, and let's continue further. So now it's the interesting part. So character count. So obviously it's in the S of 256. 0. So now we are here, and we know that it has, for S it has value 3, for W it has value 1, and for I it has value 1. Let's have a look. For S, Does the character count equals 1? No, it does not. So it continues further. For W, does the character count equals 1? Yes, it does. So we end up here, and the first non-repeating character is then W, which is what we are returning. And this is now displayed here. The first non-repeating character is in the input Swiss is W. This becomes a bit more clear when we go and use it in hash map. So what I'm going to do is I will remove these breakpoints here and let it run. And I will remove it from here as well. And now we are using the logic which is implemented using hash map. So again, the pre-checks will return a false. That means we end up here. And here it is a bit easier to track, even though I personally like the logic implemented in the method above here, character count. But while debugging, it's a bit easier to track here because you have the key and value pair which you have to look into. So the current value of character is W. What do we have here? We have at index 0 key S with value 1. So it will be added at the location 1 in the hash map. And now let's have a look. So we have key S, then we have key W, and then we have key I. And since the current character is S, so it will increment its value. So let's have a look if that is exactly what is happening. This is the value S, and it has, this is the key S, which has a value of 2 now, and at the end it will have a value of 3. We have a look at the character count here, key S with value 3. So that is exactly what we were expecting. And we check now. So entry.getValue. So let's have a look at the entry. What is the entry now? Entry is key W. Does it have value 1? Yes, it does. And since we are just interested in the first non-repeating character and not all non-repeating characters, for example, so we return at the first instant where this comparison returns true. So that is the value that we will return, and soon we will see this in the debug mode as well. As you can see here, the first non-repeating, my mistake, spelling mistake here, non-repeating character in the input Swiss is W. So what I'm going to do now is I will remove the breakpoint and let it run, and we see that all the edge cases as well as the happy path case here is also processed correctly by the logic implemented using the hash map. So that is all what I wanted to show you in this video. Hopefully you liked it, and yeah, stick around for more. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.